51 years ago, I graduated from Cornell, and at the age of 22, I was totally untrainable because I already knew everything. I have learned a lot since. Mostly what I've learned is how much I don't know, which some of you can relate to. But along the way, when Tracy was talking to me about, could you come up and say a few things, and what do you want to talk about? And one of the things that I've learned, there was a great quote from a book that I read once that said, the only real education is experience. All the preparation in the world will only teach you how to prepare. And what I realized painfully in the early part of my career is that I had a lot of good preparation and I was well prepared, but I didn't know a damn thing. The things that have worked for me, I think Suzanne was saying earlier that we call this thing the blinding flash of the obvious, and maybe you've had some. You ever have one of those when you suddenly get an insight and something strikes you and it's just brilliant, and you always knew it, but you never really knew it before? Have you had that kind of experience? And that has been, as I look back on what I've been doing, particularly recently, a lot of it comes from that, one of those ahas. And one of the ones that hit me recently that may be of some help. It's not that you don't know this, not that I didn't know this, it's just that I never really thought of it quite that way before. How many of you spend time trying to manage your sales? Right? Or manage your profit? Do you spend time with that? Stop it. Stop it, because you cannot do it. Because profit and sales are outputs. Profit and sales are outputs. You cannot manage outputs. You can monitor outputs. You can track them, and you should. The only thing you can manage are the inputs. So if you're looking for how do I improve sales, Joe, where are you at? Joe is here someplace. I've been talking to Joe about that. There you go. You cannot manage sales. You manage the inputs to sales. So what are the inputs to sales? Cover counts, right? I mean, your sales depend on how many people walk in the door. Your sales depend on check average. Your check average depends on price point. There are things that have to happen in order for the sales to happen. Frequency is an input. How can I get people to come back more often? Referrals are an input. How can I get them to talk to their friends? Same way with food cost. Yes, and some of it is how much do I pay for the product, but that's not your big cost in food. The inputs in terms of food cost are things like weights and waste and portion control, right? And the training that it takes to do that. So if you want to control the outputs, what you have to really give some thought to are what are the inputs that create that in the first place. The output's only the result of it all. Right? Does that make some sense? And like I say, this is not anything that's earth-shaking, but when I suddenly saw it that way, it changed a lot of things for me. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff tomorrow. I'm not going to try to give you a presentation tonight, but what I hope will happen in the course of your time at this event is that you'll come to think of some things that you already knew, but maybe think of them in a different way and see them in a different way. And when you see them in a different way, it changes a lot. What I find anymore is the less I know, the more I learn. The best place, truthfully, the best place you can operate from is I don't know. Because I don't know will quiet your mind down. Big time. And when your mind quiets down, you tap into a flow of wisdom that is just far deeper than anything that we access consciously. I mean, have you ever had a problem and you're working on it and working on it and working on it and thinking, making pro and cons lists, doing all those things that you do when you're working on a problem and getting absolutely nowhere? And then suddenly you get an insight, one of those blinding flashes of the obvious, and suddenly it hits you and you get this answer, and this answer is absolutely perfect, and you never thought of it before. Have you all had that experience? Right? I mean, would I be safe to guess most of you have? Did it ever come in the middle of working on the problem? For me, it comes when I totally give up on it. Say, man, I don't have a boom. Right? Or you're in the shower, or you're just falling asleep, or you're just waking up, or you're playing with the kids, or puttering on the, in the garden, or out on the golf course. When your mind quiets down, here's the difference. Working a busy-minded kind of thinking is like trying to flip through a Rolodex and find the answer. Right? And I'm going through all my past experience and I'm trying to figure out where the answer to this problem is. And the problem with that is that's all old information. That's all stuff that had happened. If it hadn't happened, it wouldn't be in your memory. Right? You ever find yourself repeating cycles in your life? Whoop, here we go again. Right? And it's just that busy-minded thinking, stacking and restacking all the files in your little mental Rolodex. But when your mind quiets down, it's kind of like standing by a river and just watching things float by in the current. And you sort of watch it and go, oh, that's interesting. And you kind of pluck out an answer. And that's all I want you to do is understand that at this stage of your career, giving yourself that quiet time is very appropriate business activity. I remember doing some work with a client down in Nags Head, North Carolina, Rufus Pritchard. Love Rufus. That doesn't sound like a Southern boy. I've never heard one. Rufus is a banker turned restaurateur, which is an interesting career switch, I thought. And Rufus was a golfer, and Rufus loved to play golf, but he never played golf as often as he wanted to because he had a busy restaurant. I mean, for him in season, he doing breakfast at the Dunes, he'd do about 1,000 breakfasts a day. Right? And so he loved to play golf, but he never got away because he had a busy restaurant and couldn't really do it. And the first time I was down working with him, I remember I asked his crew, I said, what's it like when Rufus goes to play golf? And they said, oh, it's so nice. Because by the time he realizes he's got to get out of here, he is such a pain in the ass. And he leaves, and we could finally get some work done. And he comes back, and he's in such a great mood, and he's got all these great ideas. And he's just so appreciative of us. And they said, it's wonderful. And he's thinking, I can't go. And his crew is going, out the door. What he found is that the more he played golf, the better his restaurant ran. Some of it is because he was gone and his crew had to pick up the load and they discovered how good they were. But part of it was because that quieted his mind down, and the problems that were driving him nuts, he suddenly saw the answers to. Do not underestimate that intuition, that flash that hits you that just said, damn, never thought of that before. Because all the good stuff in your life can come exactly from that. So we are here for these next couple of days to help your business get better. That is one of the pieces that will do that. I realize at this point I'm the only thing standing between you, dessert, and cocktails. which is a very scary place to be with this bunch. So let me wrap it up there. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for making our industry the best place in the world to work. I cannot imagine what else I would do. You look at what other people do, it is so deadly boring. And for whatever you want to say about our business, it is never boring. So thank you all for that. Have a great show.